Hi everyone, I'm Allie Buckman with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I am going to do a bracelet for you that is done sort of in a loom style or a leather wrap style. We're going to do it off loom. That way if you don't have a loom, you don't need a loom. If you do have a loom, you're more than welcome to kind of pick up and do this on the loom. That's up to you whether or not you prefer to do it on loom or off loom. I'm going to be doing this bracelet off loom, and it is a leather wrap bracelet that I'm going to do kind of a fade into different colors of our Potomac crystal round beads. So we have, if you need any of these materials, we have the Potomac crystal rounds and the leather and everything for you. We'll put a little drop down on the left hand side here, and if you don't see the little drop down on the left hand side, underneath the video, depending on your device, we'll have a little description and a little show more button about the different video details. If you click on there, it'll give you links to all of the different materials that we used in the videos. For the bracelet, again, I am using the Potomac crystal round beads. So these are a 4mm round, and I'm going to be using 5 different colors in my bracelet, kind of fading from darker to the lighter colors. The colors that I'll be using are the Crystal Labrador, the Metallic Transparent Aqua, Metallic Transparent Green, the Magic Blue, and the Metallic Blue Iris. Again, 4mm round crystal. And we sell them here in the tubes, which is kind of great because you get a lot of different ones, or you get a lot in each tube. When you are using the crystals, I'm also going to highlight them with a Potomac Crystal button. So this is one of our button here, and it's Potomac Crystal button, and this is the Magic Blue color as well. So you can see kind of both sides of that. In addition to that, I'll be using 1.5mm leather. This is Greek leather in the brown color. And you're going to want, depending on if you want to do it a 1 wrap or 2 wraps around, you're going to want double your wrist for the length because you are doing 2 rows. Plus double that. So 4 times your wrist length is approximately the amount of leather that you will need. If you do want to do a double wrap, you're going to need more than that too. So that, and I'll go over that a little bit when we cut. If you want to use 2mm leather or 1mm leather, you can use that as well. It's not going to affect the project. In addition to that, I'll be stringing it all with 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the black color because it's going to match the best to my brown leather cording. I'm going to be using a size 10 beading needle, and this is an English beading needle, a Pony brand beading needle is what it is in the size 10. And then I have some super new glue to glue at the very, very end. And I also have sitting here handy a thread burner. This is the Thread Zep 2 by Beadsmith. Any thread burner will work. If you want to use scissors, you can have those available as well. I just prefer the thread burner when I'm working with things. You also want a nice working surface, something that's going to be easy for you to pick up and scoop up when you're picking up with a needle. To get started, I'm going to get my leather ready. And you do want a little pair of clippers or scissors to cut the leather. You don't want to use your thread burner on the leather. And you're going to get some thread ready. We're going to get about 5 feet of our beading thread ready. So you're going to take your thread burner, do about 5 feet of thread and a needle on the end of that thread. And again, 4 times the amount of your wrist on your leather. So go ahead and cut those 2 items, get them ready to go, and make little piles of your crystals. So to get started, again, I have my leather that is 4 times the length of my wrist. And then I have my thread and needle ready to go, about 5 feet of beading thread. Again, if you do want to do a double wrap, something that's going to go around your wrist twice, you want to make sure to cut some extra leather, about double what you're doing. So about 8 times or so the length of your wrist. The reason I went 4 times the length of my wrist is because it is doubled over, because it's going to be the channel that our beads sit between. Also, you want a little bit of room at the end to do your loop for your button, and then also some room to attach your button at the very end. To start out, I have my crystals in my little piles here at the very, very top. And I'm going to start out by doubling the leather over so that the ends are even, and towards the top here making a loop for my button to fit inside. This is simple, so don't overthink it. We're literally just tying an overhand knot and pulling the leather through. You want the button loop to be big enough to fit the button through, but not too big that it's going to look really, really awkward. Give nice tight pulls, and the Greek leather is really forgiving and really nice to work with. I'm pulling that knot very tightly. Now I get to do my thread and needle and kind of attach that as well. To attach the thread and needle, I have the needle here and the thread on it. I'm going to go to the very, very end of my thread. Taking the very end of the thread, I'm going to tie that thread right below the knot of the leather. If you wanted to, you could use Chinese knotting cord for this section. You could also use wax linen cord. That's kind of up to you. I'm really a lot quicker with the thread and needle. And if you are doing this loom style, you do thread kind of down that as well. So that's why I'm using the thread. But I'm going to do 2 knots to get that cording nice and tight. Go ahead, then you can see it's not right up at the top. I'm going to just push it right up to the top. If you want to, you can grab your thread burner then, burn the tail down a little bit so that way it doesn't get kind of mixed in with your project, but don't burn it down the whole way. You'll do that at the very end after we do a tiny dab of glue onto the knot. So again, like I said, we're creating a channel of beads for them to sit in. I'm going to go 3 wide with my beads. So my beads, when I'm looking at them, it's going to be 3 wide, which they're 4 millimeters, so it's going to be about 12 inches wide at its widest point. If you want to go wider, you can do that. That's kind of up to you. When you start the bracelet, you don't want to start 3 wide right away. What we're going to do is gradually build up to that 3 wide. So I have my crystals kind of set up from lightest to darkest, and I'll move them down a little bit more so you can see them here. And what I'm going to actually do is start with my darkest crystal. So I'm acting like I'm starting at the end, and then I'm going to go towards the beginning. To start with the darkest crystal, I'm going to add 1 of the crystals onto my needle. And again, this is that metallic blue iris color. If you want to, you can even start with some seed beads. Once you have it on, it's going to want to hang out to the side. What I'm going to do is put it into the middle of the leather, separating out the leather so that the bead is going to sit on the inside. We want the holes of the beads to sit perpendicular to the leather, not parallel, because then they're going to sit on the side. You're going to take your thread and needle over the top of the other piece of leather, and then sew back through that crystal, coming out the other end. What this is going to do is get a piece of cording there, a piece of that thread, to go right around the edge of the leather. When I come out the end here, you can see that it's sticking up just a tiny little bit. Same deal on the bottom strand of the leather. The thread's coming out to the top of the leather. We're going to sew underneath the leather and back out to the top of the other side. That again is going to put some of the thread on the side of the leather. Now you can see that holds the bead in nice and tightly, that it's sitting nice and perpendicular to the actual leather. With the needle in hand then, I'm going to take my needle and thread over a tiny bit towards the left-hand side here, away from that loop, go underneath the leather so that my thread and needle are coming out in the middle. Oh, not getting it caught there. But I want my thread and needle to come out in the middle of the leather. So you can see it went over the top and then came out in the middle. From there, I'm going to pick up my next colors, which are my Crystal Labrador there, and pick up 2 beads. Let those drop down in between the leather. And they're going to drop right in the middle there. So I'm getting wider from 1 to 2 crystals. Again, the thread is coming over the top of the bottom line of leather, and I'm going to sew back through both crystals, coming out then above the leather on the opposite side. Give a nice tight pull, and that's going to get those crystals in place. Now it's time that you can do back through the crystals again, because you don't actually have any point where the leather is held in by the thread here on the opposite side. So each bead basically is going to have the thread going through 3 times. Going over top of the leather, the needle is going to go underneath the top strand, through the crystals, and out above the leather on the other side. And then that one is trapped in there. You can see there's a tiny bit of space between my beads here. I don't want them nice and tightly, because what happens then is as you're wearing it, it bunches up. On the leather also, it's a little bit hard to see because it is the black thread, but you're going to have this kind of cross horizontal stitching going on that is going to go opposite on each bead. So here I'm going over the top strand. Now, as we add, it's going to go over the bottom strand. So my thread and needle is going to go around the leather, come out the center, and I'm going to get ready to pick up my next color, which is like that really light aqua color, like water. This time I'm doing my 3 beads and letting those drop down between my threads. If you want to, you can also get creative, going bigger to smaller. And so you can go in and do 3 and kind of do little eye sections almost. Maybe I'll play around with that in another video. I'm going to go over the leather with the needle coming out underneath, and then the needle goes through straight over to the other side. So this is building up here from the base to the top. And if you get twisted in the thread, just kind of push it through. So I'm at the top of the leather here at the bottom. And just like before, I'm going to sew over the top of the leather, taking the needle under the leather and through those 3 crystals and out through the top. Now that I've progressed to the 3 beads and kind of have them locked in place here, we're going to continue with 3. Like I said, it looks fun if you do little sections where you go into 1 and then 3 and then downgrade and upgrade. For this purpose, and just to make it easy for you guys to follow along, I'm just going to continue for a couple rows with the 3. So again, I'm taking my thread and needle through the leather wrap so that it's coming out inside the thread. Pick up my next color, which is that greenish color, and again, 3 beads. Pushing those down into place, going over the leather and then under the leather with the thread. And honestly, no one's going to be able to tell. I just like to stay really consistent with which direction I'm sewing my thread. If you forget which direction, no big deal. I come out over top of the leather on the top end. So underneath, through my beads. This will be my 3rd time through my beads. Like I said, every bead's going to have 3. Out the top, and then we're going to get ready to add our next color. If your thread at the top kind of crosses over a little bit, just pull it over and then pull again tightly so you know that your thread is not going to be in the wrong place. Now I'm ready to add my next grouping of 3, which will be my magic blue, and I'm going to continue on taking it from the one end, sewing towards the middle, adding the beads, and continuing sewing over the thread, and then bringing the needle under and over the thread again. So just showing as I continue here the look and the design, you can see kind of they move around the bracelet a little bit. Again, you want to make sure as you're building that they're not super tight next to one another. And I'm just continuing on. You can see if you turn the project to the side here, those little kind of zigzag lines that I was saying are on every other section, going from the top to the bottom, zigzagging each individual way. So you're just going to continue on building, adding in the different colors, getting to the middle, progressing to your next color, and adding your 3 beads until it's time to downgrade. By downgrading, what I mean is, as the bracelet gets to be closer in size to fit, you'll go down again from the 2 to the 1. Again, I go over and under the leather, through my beads, coming out over the leather. Give a little tight pull, but you don't want too tight. Go under, over and under, and come out over the top. As I continue, then I will just continue adding on my different rows of my beads here with that color pattern. Like I said, it gets really fun and kind of creative, especially with these crystals, to do kind of that eye pattern where you're going bigger to smaller and bigger to smaller. So play around with that design as well. But I'm going to continue for you guys creating by just adding in my color pattern, almost that dark to light kind of blue and oceany tones, and adding in my 3 beads, 3 crystals at a time. Right across then, always over and then under and over. And again, the important thing, if you kind of forget where you are and what you're doing, is just to remember, and you can count how many times the thread went through the beads, because you want to make sure that you have your groups of 3 times going through. And also you can look back and see if there's no kind of line of thread going over the top, then you know you end at the top on this one, because you're always ending opposite. You can see the color fade is kind of happening nicely, and we're getting those nice look of all of those fun, pretty round beads in, making sure that they have plenty of room to kind of play around and move along your wrist. Once the bracelet is getting long enough, and you can see here kind of that nice color progression that I have going on, you're going to start to downgrade. What I mean by downgrading, and kind of I went over earlier, was that we're going to do the opposite of upgrading. So we're going to go from the 3 beads here in the blue iris to 2 in our crystal Labrador color, since that is our next bead. I have 2 of those on, and again I'm coming out through my leather, over the top of the leather, back through my beads, over the top of the leather again. And here's where you want to be careful. You don't want to pull too hard, because you don't want it to look awkward, but you want to make sure that you are bringing those beads in. Also, what I do is kind of run my fingers along the bracelet and spread out the crystals just the tiniest little bit. That way when you wear it, they're not going to start to sit right over top of one another. So as I do that, you can see I haven't pulled my thread really tightly yet. I'm going to go in and kind of pull from both sides, because I don't want one of the leather to go up and sit on an angle. I want them to kind of sit in the middle. Excuse me. For my 2 beads then, I'm going to take the needle out through the middle. I'm going to get ready for my single bead. Put my single bead on here. Again, I'm at the center of the leather, up over the leather and under with the needle, coming out over the leather, and then going under with the needle, and through that last bead one more time. And again, here's where I'm going to make sure that my leather is kind of sitting even on both sides and not really pulling one direction or the other. After your downgrade and you have that ready to go, now it's time to actually put on your clasp. So if you have a button or a clasp that is big enough, sometimes you can actually take the leather, especially if it's 1 millimeter, and you can go through the holes of the button. With this one here, it's not going to be big enough to go through the holes of the button. So what I'm going to do is actually sew the button onto the leather. To do so, the first thing I'm going to do is basically close off my leather. To close off the leather, I'm going to simply tie a knot. Again, I'm not overthinking it. Just tie a knot. Give a nice tight pull. and have that knot tied there. So now I have my bracelet basically completely done with my loop on one side and my loop and my knot on the other. With the thread and needle then, and I've left just a tiny little space, I'm going to go under the thread, just like if I was under the leather, just like if I was continuing, and I'm going to sew the button basically right over top of the knot. If you want to, you can sew it next to the knot and then have another knot on the other side. That's kind of up to you. My thread is now out the center of my leather, and I'm going to just do a figure 8 as if I was sewing on more beads, but I'm not. I'm just sewing the thread and connecting it to the leather. Coming out the top then, I'm going to go through the button, through one hole of it, doesn't really matter which one, and on a diagonal out another hole. You can see the button's going to sit right there. Go to the other side of the knot here, and I'm going to sew around one piece of the leather and back up through the button through another hole. We will tie another knot after the button. We can come down again and through, and literally this is sewing on a button. So you're kind of not going to overthink it. If you want to, you can catch all 4 holes. You can catch 2 holes. It's kind of up to you. You can use a cup button for this. I just wanted to continue with my crystal theme here. Going down on the other side then, through the button, catching the leather on the opposite side to kind of make the button sit stable. Back up through the hole. And again, not overthinking it, it's a button. Once you have your button sewed on a couple times on either side of the knot, it's going to be time to actually close off the thread and close off the button and the leather. So I have it kind of looped around there. You can see it just the littlest of bits. I'm going to take the thread and needle to the back of the button and tie it off. Taking it around the leather now, I'll simply tie that thread off. After I tie the thread off too, I'm going to take these 2 thread ends and literally just tie them in a knot. Once they're tied in a knot then, go in with your scissors. And you're just going to trim down on either side of the knot on that leather. After trimming down on either side of the knot of the leather, you can go in also and do your thread burner, burn off the thread, and we'll do little dabs of glues on all of our knots to make sure that they're not going to come free, as well as the threaded knot here to make sure that knot is not going to come out as well. After gluing down the end and kind of tucking the threads underneath as well as the leather underneath, your crystal leather wrap bling bracelet here is completed. You can see you can really have fun with this. Like I said, going ahead and making it smaller and bigger and kind of taking turns with which colors you're using and mixing and matching. And a cool thing about this also is you really can use any sort of beads in these bracelets. I just thought it would be nice, and it was actually at the suggestion of my husband, to use a bunch of crystals to wear. It kind of goes with that elegance versus that natural leather look. It's a good kind of play with the crystals, and I love the crystal button at the end tying the whole thing together. Again, if you need any of the materials to do this crystal wrap bracelet, you can go back to the beginning of the video to the little drop down menu, or if you're on a mobile or another device, underneath it has the description. You might have to look around on it depending on kind of what application you're using and what browser you're looking. But with the description of the video, if you press the show more button there, it'll give you the links to all the different products that were used in the video. As always, if you like the video, you like having new updates on things that we have in, what's going on in the beading world, and staying connected with us, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel. You can also visit us at PotomacBeads.com, shop with me there online, or visit your local Potomac Bead Company store. You can also stay connected with us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, as well as join our Facebook group for beading and jewelry making. There's a great community of people that love the craft and love to create and make, whether or not it's just mixed media or bead weaving or just all different types of jewelry art. It's really kind of incredible to see what people make. Join there, become a member, and you can show off your designs, show off your ideas, and also kind of get ideas as well. As always, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and have fun creating this bling crystal wrap bracelet.